Hi, I'm Angie Lee, the host of Leadership Narratives podcast. I've been leading teams since my 20s and have coached leaders from the world's most admired brands like Amazon, Google, American Express, Pfizer, Apple, Microsoft, and many others. On every episode, I'll be bringing on top leaders from companies you know and love to give you mini leadership masterclasses. Week after week, you'll uncover and model your leadership voice that will make a mark on the world. Subscribe to the show to get notified of every new release. Today, we have a special guest on our show, Kumar Abhishek. Kumar comes to us with a ton of industry experience with a career trajectory that stretches across JP Morgan, GE Capital, and iGate. And Kumar is a renowned commercial leader who has consistently delivered remarkable results. He's orchestrated massive process improvements, generated significant cost savings, and led teams on a global scale. Kumar has honed his skills at institutions like MIT Sloan, Sims, and Delhi University, charting a course that has seen him rise through the ranks and shape industries. This journey wasn't a stroll down an easy path, but a testament to perseverance, grit, and relentless curiosity. I'm thrilled to welcome Kumar to the show. Welcome. It's good to have you here today.
Oh, thank you very much, Angie. And I thank you very much for a very nice introduction. It really took me back to my days.
That's wonderful. Glad to hear that. Kumar, what did you have for breakfast today?
I had my first meal almost half an hour before because I stick to the intermittent fasting. I've been doing it for like almost 1 year plus. Initially, it was a little difficult, but I think slowly and steadily I got into it. Some
That's
chicken
great.
and some salad just before this call.
Oh, that's great. So intermittent fasting and also staying on a low carb diet. Is that what you're on?
So now I have to check myself, but I'm trying to actually do that because that brings a lot of focus during my office hour or post office hour. So yeah, trying to be healthy.
So I practice intermittent fasting myself, and I
Nice.
notice the mental clarity and also energy level. And there's just a big difference between a heavy carb meal versus having more protein based and trying to fill in with good carbs. You said about a year ago you started this. What did you do before that?
No, honestly, before that, it was bizarre actually. So I get up and I have my breakfast, whatever I want, and then there was no stopping in between. I love eating, and I just realized that I have to stop somewhere. So I still love eating, right? I'm just trying to see that what suits my body, what suits my mind, and those kind of calibration I'm trying. So yes, I changed from, if not worse, bad to towards the good, I would say.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Do you think the fact that you're now going into a different age group, seeing our bodies change and our lifestyles change at the same time, things are a little bit different, isn't it?
No, it does. Actually, when you're young, your body takes care of everything, right? All sorts of ages, it will take care of it. But I think slowly and steadily, your body will start talking to you that, you know what, please start taking care of me. Otherwise, I'll not be able to take care of you in the future. So that signaling actually happens. And whenever it happens, we need to catch that signal and start behaving accordingly. So I think I'm somewhere in the midst of it. I'm trying to catch those signals and then try to do as best as I can for myself.
It sounds like the level of self-awareness that we build throughout our years and as we become more in tune with what our body is telling us and seeing the implications or the results of when we treat our bodies well, right, by eating good food, practicing intermittent fasting and exercising. These are all the disciplines that make us successful in what we do in both our personal and professional lives. Speaking of your early days, how did you go about entering the IT industry and what drew you towards this field?
So I started my career as a software developer in India, and slowly I moved out of it, and I moved to General Electric, which was a GSC center. It's a global service center, and it was a pure operation. So I literally changed my line from a tech to operations kind of a role. But then I realized that when I started working over there, the moment we started attaching the technology, right, and integrating the tech with operations, even with a small quantum, the results was very, very scalable. And that actually gave me a little bit of a clue that it doesn't matter what profession you are in and whatever you are doing, at the end of it, I think you need to somewhere attach to the IT and actually take the advantage of being scalable and and solve a better problem, a bigger problem in a much faster way.
And at what point in your career did you feel like you were making a substantial impact? What was happening around you then?
When I was in iGate, I started interacting with a very, very senior clients and started solving their problems. That's when something actually trickled to my mind that it seems like the problem is there, right? Everywhere. It's just that how you can tap it and how you can design it and how you can solve it with the help of an IT infrastructure. That was a big move for me where I started thinking about solving the problem rather than just kind of doing the task and taking my job as a task. So that was a big migration for me mentally.
Can you share any challenging instances or obstacles that you faced in your career and how you overcame that challenge?
Of course, when I moved from India to US, that was extremely challenging. I moved lock, stock, and barrel with my wife and my daughter. So it wasn't easy for me to actually settle myself in a new place. I mean, US is a very, very friendly, very nice place, no question about it. But again, it's different. So it just took me some time to get used to of the overall culture of it. And at the same time, I had a big responsibility of managing big operations, which was going through some of transition. So I had to literally, drive my car, and at the same time, I was changing the tire of my car. I mean, that's an analogy I can give you. So it was very tough. But that period actually made me thought that when you are stretched and when you have given no option but to perform, I think we as human do a better job there.
So, what you're saying is learning to trust yourself more in those instances or maybe in periods of uncertainty?
That's correct. I mean, sometimes you do not even know what you can bring to the table. Sometimes the situation actually makes you believe that the areas where you can actually do a much better job, and I think that was the case with me, and that I'm really thankful to that situation. I mean, moving from India to US was exciting, no question about it, but with those responsibility and rendering at the same point in time, like in a parallel mode, was not easy, but I think somehow I sailed through.
Mm. Yeah. Kumar, I know that you have led teams on a global scale. So I want to shift gears and talk a little bit about team leadership here. How do you typically balance the needs of your team with the strategic objectives of your organization?
I think we need to understand our people. That's extremely important. I mean, they're the one who are literally doing the job. They're the one who are literally moving the mountain. I mean, an idea cannot work unless you work the idea, right? We have heard about it, and it actually applies for the strategies also. So I can build a very sharp strategy, which I know that there's a huge amount of return on investment on those strategy and so on. But if I cannot execute it, if my team cannot execute it, that has no meaning, right? So uh, coming back to the first part of it, so yes, managing a global team, you really have to be an extremely good listener, and you have to demonstrate the empathy. Do not hesitate to literally show your vulnerability as well. I mean, we are all human beings and we make mistakes and we learn from our mistakes.
So, can you share some insights on managing and motivating teams across different cultures?
Let me be very honest about it. It's very difficult for a one person to actually understand the entire culture. We are working in a global environment, right? Somebody is from APAC, somebody is from EMEA, VEM. I mean, I'm not going to learn everything, like all the culture. It's impossible. I think the best way to come across is that be genuine. I mean, people definitely see that whether you are honest and whether you are genuine or not. Work for your team, work for the individual. Yes, the strategy is important that needs to be implemented, but there is an art, right? More than a science, there is an art where you can actually connect the personal, I would say, aspirations of your team, of your employees with the strategy. I mean, that's a game changer. If you can demonstrate that and very steadily, if you can actually connect these two dots, then your strategy is going to work, right? Because the people who are actually moving it is the one who are actually on board it.
So it sounds like you're leading with the servant leadership principles, making sure that the needs of your team members are met, and connecting with your team members, and also understanding their needs through conversations and supporting their needs. I'm curious to know, how do you define leadership, and how has this definition evolved over the course of your career?
It's a great question. To be honest, everybody has their perspective. When I started working and when I saw my leaders around me, which is obviously inspiring, uh, the initial fundamental principle which I understood about leadership is that get the job done. That's what I imbibed, and that's what I actually communicated and tried working towards my team. But then later on, I realized that it's just not getting the work done. It's basically influencing your environment in a direction where they can self start taking decisions, reaching to the goal. So I would say leadership is full of influential capabilities in a right direction, of course, and enabling people to actually do best can do. And leadership is also very important for you to understand what one person can do, and without limiting anybody. But you just cannot ask a fish to climb a tree, right? So you need to have the knack to understand that where we can where we can push your people, where are the latent talent a person or your employee or professional actually possess, and then try to harness their skill sets on that domain.
So again, it goes back to what you were saying about focusing on growing leaders and using your influence to do exactly that. Can you share a personal anecdote that influenced your leadership style in some way?
I'll give you one example. So I've been interviewed in I Get Global Solution. There was a gentleman who was interviewing me, and he was the head of transition, and he asked me 4 questions. I answered 3 questions, and the one question I said I didn't know that. Right? When I got into I Get, the work was literally overwhelming for me. So I went to his office and I said, "Hey, look, it seems like this is too much. So I need a little bit of a time to actually settle myself and then produce what you're looking at from me." Then he laughed at me and said, "Hey, look, do you remember I asked you 4 questions?" I said, "Yeah, I do." I said, "Three of the questions you were like somewhere there but not there, and the last question you said that you don't know. So net, if I go binary, you are like 0 out of 4. But I still hired you because I knew that you're going to you have that caliber to turn the table." And that made me realize that analytics is extremely important, and we should analyze wherever we can. But then your gut and your instinct, those also plays a very important role. I mean, he actually had a bet on me, and during that course I learned a lot when I was working with iGate. So I would definitely say that your analytics combined with your gut and intuition are two very powerful tools, and that can actually rip a maximum number of right decisions, if not all.
And to add to what you just said, Kumar, it sounds like also admitting something you don't know, and that's okay, right? Because as leaders, we don't know everything, and we have to be okay knowing that, and to have the courage and the guts to be able to admit that, especially during an interview. Wow, that must have been not only hard, but it must have sort of put you in a compromising position.
It was tough, and but that's what I'm saying. There's a book which I actually have read, and its name is Catalyst, and it's a beautiful book, and it's written by an Indian author. And he said that your growth is equivalent to your interpersonal skill plus luck in your life. And then he actually rewrote that book 40 years down the line, and he actually took the same formula, and he said that your growth is equivalent to your interpersonal skills plus luck minus luck.
Mm.
And then he defined that, and he said that in 40 years of his career, there were chances where he was supposed to be promoted or just to get certain position, which but he could not because of whatever XYZ reasons. And then there were chances on those 40 years where he felt that he was not ready for it, but then he got that position and then he actually worked upon it. So net, he's saying that when you go for your career for 40 years, it's your interpersonal skills, it's you who actually has invested in yourself, and what have you produced, and how you change, if not the world, to the company where you have worked with, the people, process, technology, IT infrastructure is what is going to be the resultant. So coming back to that experience, that's what I always feel, that you could be lucky sometime and you may not be in some certain other time, but net, it all depends how you actually bring yourself up.
This is an important takeaway for anyone who is, especially is in the IT field. As a coach myself, when I find that when I'm coaching and working with technical teams or people with heavy technical skills, having interpersonal skills or having soft skills is something that is sort of introduced later in their careers, right? Because they're so focused on building their knowledge around whether it's coding or whether it's building products or whatever it might be, that they often lack those soft skills or interpersonal skills. And I find that to be more prevalent in the IT industry. Do you find that to be true?
I do. I definitely do. I can give you my example. So my childhood was, it was nice. It wasn't like I was challenged for anything. My parents took care of us very well, and I have two siblings and so on, right? So that's not a problem. But I'm part of eastern side of India, which is pretty interior, I would say, and it's Bihar. Now it is called as Jharkhand. And my father he was a cop, and he was working in a coal filled area. And as you know that if you're extracting coal out of the ground, out of the center of the earth, right, you're not doing it in near the village or the town. It has to be a tribal area. So it was very far off. And I grew up over there. I did my education over there. When you go through these kind of transition, you sometimes don't realize that whether you unknowingly, not that like it was given to me. Yes, it was given to me, but at that point in time, I never felt that, I'm not in a very one of the best schools in India and so on and so forth. I just exploited whatever opportunity I had, and then I kept on working on it, and I kept on moving on that. Now, coming back to this whole communications and the interpersonal skills, there are two sets to it. A, you planned for it, you go for A class schools and the colleges and those kind of stuff, and you build it. Or B, you can actually go through certain experiences which ultimately take you there. You may take a little bit of an extra time to refine yourself as a product, but then you ultimately get there. And that's exactly what I have seen in the IT industry as well, because they invest so much of time to learning the language, right? It doesn't matter whether they're too good in speaking in English, but if as long as they can write a code in Java, that solves their problem, right? So their first language become Java and the second language become English. But I've seen people who actually master the interpersonal skills, they actually fetch the maximum in the overall market.
I love that you use the analogy of building yourself like a product, right? That's a great way to look at, and especially for someone who looks at and works with technical tools all day, they might not be able to grasp the idea of focusing on building soft skills or improving their communication skills or whatever that may be. What about first time managers in your space? What recommendation or advice do you have for people that are learning to lead people for the first time?
I mean, there are four stages as far as I know, right? So first is the execution. So make sure that your execution is given. You cannot compromise on the execution, whether you are managing a team or you are an individual contributor. Once you move from execution, you move to the unification. That's when you start managing people, process, technology, and some big programs and so on, right? And then you move to communication, and then you move to imagination, which is a leadership layer. But coming back to your question, that what a starter should do, 100% understand what you're doing end to end, instead of like touching everything and just trying to know everything here and there. You really have to understand whatever you are doing. You have to bring that subject matter expertise. It's always good to know multiple things. I mean, jack of all trade, but at least master of one is very important. You can't be none, otherwise it's not going to sustain.
It sounds like moving from a more of a generalist and then becoming a specialist, right? That's sort of that journey that you're talking about. Know your stuff, develop the subject matter expertise, be known as the expert in that particular area within the team so you know what you're talking about. Um, I have coached many leaders through the transition from IC, individual contributor, to becoming a first time leader. One of the biggest challenges that people often face is leading your friends or your colleagues, right? Because now you're managing the people that you used to be friends with, the people you used to have lunch and coffee with and whatever. Um, and people often get stuck in that space because they're like, how do I influence? How do I make an impact as a leader and leading a team of people that used to be my friends? Any thoughts there?
It's a tough one, by the way. I've been through these situations. um, Look, the way I have approached, I haven't changed my relationship with my colleagues when I became their manager. It was the same. Like we were going out, having cup of coffee, tea, whatever. Like, I just wanted to make sure that they do not feel that I'm changing over there. The talks to an extent also hasn't changed. So I just wanted to keep myself very real. But then I created a very strong matrix world around me. So I didn't question any individual, and that's what I do now as well. I don't question any individual. I question the matrix. So matrix is a living and breathing document for me, right? And when I question the matrix, I'm not questioning the individual, I'm questioning the data. People do get the message, but they appreciate that you're not being direct to them and you're actually taking a segue to translate the message. And also when you're matrix driven, you're actually talking data all the time. So you just take away the little bit of emotions out of it when you touch and when you start sensing the data. And that's the beauty of data, right? And that's what I do.
That's so golden. Kumar. I think people can certainly start to look at when it comes to leadership, being more matrix focused or matrix driven, removing the emotions from the equation so that you're not focused on people, but being matrix focused allows you to do that. And and hence help you to become more of an effective leader. Um, I think that was one of the best takeaways that I've heard so far in our talk today. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
What are some leadership myths you'd like to debunk based on your personal experience? Does anything come to mind?
It does. I think first thing first, right? Leader has to be strong all the time, beat whatever the situation, right? The leader should not be vulnerable. 100%, I feel that it's not right. And in my experience, I have seen that whenever I was under the weather in terms of the deliverables and in terms of a situation which is like really tough, I being tough back to my team, I was really vulnerable. I just went back and said, hey, look, guys, I know this doesn't seem real. I know this expectation is also not very real, but this is the client requirement. We have to do it. We have a competition in our space, so on and so forth. How can we get it there? Can somebody help here? Can we work on this together? You are a leader, but it doesn't mean that you're not a human, right? Yes, you have been managing a big program and big team and process and whatnot, but then at the end of it, we are human. So it's I think a human to human connect is literally comes very strong when you are okay to show your vulnerability, right? Don't whine, but show your vulnerability that, hey, look, this is something is like overpowering me, and can we just sail through? And I have got tremendous results. Teams stood by. They have in certain scenarios we have actually some impossible task we have achieved just because I was vulnerable and I did not. No, I've never hidden my emotions.
There's so many great talks, and thinking about an author, have you heard of Brene Brown? She talks a lot about vulnerability, right?
I have, and I've read her book as well.
Yeah, and I think she brings up a very interesting point about how when when at one point when you start to lead with vulnerability, um, to your point, it almost creates a very different dynamic because that level of humanness and the connection that we create with people is something very different when we're not vulnerable or when we're less vulnerable in different situations. Um, but I have to also imagine that in order to get to that point of learning to be more vulnerable with people around you or in tough, situations and challenges, that must have taken some time to practice to get yourself to that point. Is that right?
That's right. But I'll tell you one thing. That's the reason I was giving you giving you example of my childhood. You are the derivatives of multiple things. You are derivatives of different situations you have been through from your childhood to your youth and so on, right? So it all depends, right? And you're right. I have to practice that? I would say no, because it just came to me very naturally, you know. But yeah, if you do not have it, and if you sense that stuff is missing in you, then definitely you should practice and actually implement, because I have seen wonderful results every time, I have led with the help of vulnerability. Not that I'm using vulnerability as a tool, so don't get me wrong. It's basically coming across real and showing your emotions and motivating and taking help of your team. I mean, that's pretty much, I would say, a leadership style.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. Most people nowadays believe a leader to be someone who is invincible, right? Someone who doesn't have feelings, who doesn't have that humanness or that connection, but someone who just shows up, gets the work done, and is able to lead teams through remarkable results. But that's not the case, right? Leaders are not just Superman or wearing a cape to work every day.
Yeah.
Leaders are very much humans, but we just play a very different role in terms of serving our teams, or the people that we serve are the teams and the people around us, and supporting them through a process or through a project, and being able to, like you said, to be vulnerable through that level of connection you create with the people around you is going to help you to be more effective in your leadership. So I do agree with that leadership approach very much. Um, has there been like a mentor or an important figure who influenced your career in any way?
Oh yeah, 100%. Multiple people, I would say. But honestly, if I have to like literally zero it down, I was just thinking of my parents because they are the one, my father and my mother, they are the two individuals in my life who have raised all of us with a lot of values, right? And with a lot of aspirations. That's something which I now that if I go back and think about it, it's amazing actually. Uh, we are from a middle class family. I mean, it's a good family. There's no issue in terms of economics and all the stuff. We were like well taken care of. But the one thing which I've seen both my parents, that I've seen this whole world is a go getter, and they both are like a go giver. It doesn't matter who is around them, whether it is a family member, whether it is us, my brothers, my cousins. Like they're always there for others, and they have actually demonstrated it in many instances what they had done. So that really inspires me that you need to have that attitude towards helping your people around you, and it's not easy, by the way. It's not easy, but whatever money you have, you have 10,000 reasons to spend on yourself, on your family, but then take that money and take the time more than the money and actually invest it onto somebody else where you're not expecting any results. I mean, it's commendable. So I think these are some of the values which I always look up to my parents, and I would say they're my lifetime mentors.
Oh, that's amazing, Kumar. And that is such an important aspect of our foundation, right? Because that's at the root of it all. That's who we are. And having parents, not just any parents, like the way you put it, parents as mentors who shaped your perspective in life and helping you to create that abundance mindset and to be a giver first. Those are very good qualities we need to see more in leaders. What legacy do you hope to leave behind?
Honestly, I've never thought about it. I just want to work as long as I can. That's one thing which always comes in my mind. Um, I would like to help people around in wherever I can. I mean, there are certain areas where I'm good at. I know I am, and then there are certain areas where I'm not good at. So I would like to make sure that people do not learn those skills from me. So learn the skills where I can actually make some difference. I would like to. I would like to really build more leaders. I would like to build more leaders who can actually take care of them. We need more leaders around us, right? Because the work is paramount. The work, it's never going to stop. There is no dearth of opportunities for a leader to actually perform. This is my thought process. Build more people around me and change their life so that they can change the life of their dear ones, right? So that's how I'd like to be remembered. I don't have any big legacy thing in my mind, but yeah, I would like to keep on working as long as I can.
Yeah, that's great. Keep working as long as you can while building leaders. That's an amazing legacy to have. Um, what's the one final thought that you want to leave our audience with?
Be real. Yeah, just be real and don't worry about things you do not know. I mean, this is a world where we are living right now, in this internet world where somebody who is in village can actually join Harvard business classes and Stanford classes. I mean, this technology is amazing. And then use the data in the right direction. Try to do a little bit from your world. I mean, I don't know if we can change the world, and that's a very dramatic and a big statement, but take some time of your day to day and then try to visualize that how you can actually make this place a better place.
That's amazing. So try to go out there and impact those around you, and that's your world, right? You don't have to try to change the entire world in one day. That's
That's
great.
right.
So, Kumar, thank you so much for this insightful conversation.
No, thank you very much, Angie. And I think thanks for this opportunity. It's wonderful. You made me at so ease that I was speaking from my heart. So thanks for this opportunity.
With that, Kumar, thank you. And audience, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's Leadership Narrative. We'll reference Kumar's LinkedIn profile and any relevant information in our show notes so you can follow him and see what he's up to next. If you've taken away something today that will help you to lead better, tell us about it by reviewing the show wherever you're listening to this. Be sure to tune back next week for another leadership narrative from an industry giant. Thank you again and see you later.